Right, hey everyone, and welcome back to Cade's Comics. If this is your first time watching the channel, go ahead and hit subscribe down below so you never miss another video. If this is not your first time watching the channel, I hope you enjoyed this video like all the others. Today, I'm giving you guys 10 tips to help you read better with ADHD or ADD. If you're like me and you find it very difficult to focus for long periods of times and also then forget about kind of what you're doing, hopefully these tips will help you. I know for me personally, there are a lot of times that I will start reading a book, read it for a night or two, and then kind of forget that I was reading it and read something else, if that makes sense to people. I've had Roger Stern's Spider-Man sat on my desk for so long because I keep wanting to read it, but then wanting to read something else as well. So I have all these books behind me that I kind of want to read and then not reading them. And I'm hoping that by making this video today, I'll give you guys some of the tips to help you focus for longer, and in turn, I will do those things as well and focus longer on myself as well. Tip number one is to set goals. Obviously, I'll have my bookmark marking where I've got to, but if I open this up, I'll kind of think to myself, how many issues do I want to read in this one sitting? I'll kind of say like maybe one or two, see how I'm feeling when I get to that point, and I can always move on and read more then. I find that this gives me a better insight into how long's left, and it kind of breaks the book down into little sections so it doesn't feel as overwhelming for me. I also do this with individual trade paperbacks and things that are smaller, like 4-issue, 6-issue things. After I finish reading this video, actually, I'm going to go and read Vote Loki, which I talked about in my April haul. Setting these goals for myself, I find really helps me to kind of stay on top of my collection and also reading the books that I want to read. Next up is creating a quiet and comfortable environment. I absolutely love to read my books at my desk, and I also like reading them in bed and things like that before I go to sleep. It's good when I read them in bed because it's already pretty quiet, but living in London, it's never really that quiet. When I'm reading in the day though, things tend to be very noisy, so one thing I like to do is like put my AirPods in and put noise cancelling on, or even before I had them, just putting headphones on, playing some music, something like that. Having that auditory sense gone really helps me to focus on what I'm looking at. I don't know if that's the same for anyone else in particular, but I find that that really helps me. A quick story, when I was studying for my GCSEs or my A-levels, Ready Player One had just come out, and so I listened to the soundtrack of that over and over and over when I was studying because it's quite rock heavy. It's quite loud, fast music. Then when I went to university, I got into like more thrash metal, and so I was listening to playlists of just thrash metal while I was doing my revision and studying and things like that. I didn't really do that much studying, but I listened to thrash metal when I was doing it. Tip number 3 is to use some kind of fidget toy or something to have on you when you're reading, or just in general. I have something that you've probably seen here, this ring that I'm always wearing. It actually spins. So it's not just a ring, it's like a fidget thing. It spins around like that. So anytime I'm feeling anxious, I'll spin it. I've also got one of those like little cubes that's got switches on and things like that. I kind of sometimes will just find myself playing with that when I'm reading a big long book, particularly stories from like the 70s, 80s, like the Roger Stern Spider-Man, because it's so dialogue heavy. I like to have my little cube when I'm reading that, so I'll be reading it and have the little cube messing around with it. I find that it really helps me focus on things as well. Obviously not going to be the same for everyone, but those kind of little things help me. And also, not every fidget toy is the same. This ring helps me sometimes, but there are sometimes I need like a little switch. I need to be pressing buttons, doing things like that. Don't just focus solely on one thing. Don't pick up a fidget toy or a cube and think, right, this is it, this will get me to focus. Shop around, see what works for you. Tip number 4 is to break up your reading into small sections. As I just mentioned, I'm reading Vote Loki after this, and I'm aiming to try and get that done in about half an hour. I think that should be pretty feasible for me. Also, with reading Roger Stern's Spider-Man, with it going issue by issue, I like to break it up into that kind of smaller reading and just do 1-2 issues at a time. When I read Original Sin for the first time, I broke it up and read half in the morning, half in the evening, and I found that this really helps me sometimes, especially with longer books like omnibuses. Although when I was reading something like Invincible, you can check out my review up here for that, I just blitzed that through and read like 40 issues in a day and things like that. So take that with a pinch of salt, break it up when possible. Don't focus too much on reading as much as you can in one day. Do it because you like doing it. Something that might help you to retain information a little bit better, if you want to retain information on certain stories, say you're reading Roger Stern's Spider-Man and you want to then go on and read something later on like the Clone Saga or even the Ultimates. One thing to help you retain information is making notes, reading a book and then going away, making notes on how much of it you can remember. This is kind of linking back to like revision and stuff like that, so I'm aware that it might not be completely compatible with reading comics, but it's something that I found works if I do want to retain as much information as possible. I would kind of almost do this sometimes when I was reading Invincible, so I I would like message people or something about the certain like wars within Invincible. I found that helped me to retain the information a little bit better. Tip number 6 is to use a bookmark. It just helps you stay focused because you know where you're reading to, and also you know where you've read. Don't try and rely on the page numbers or even folding pages. Don't be that guy. Don't fold pages. Use a bookmark. It helps me a lot. Tip number 7, similarly to taking breaks as often as you can, or just whenever you feel like you need them, set a timer. If you've only got 15 minutes before you need to leave and get a train, or you've only got 15 minutes before you want to go to sleep or something like that, don't force yourself to read loads and loads. Just set a timer, maybe stop halfway through a page, or read a page and stop halfway through like a scene or something like that. You don't need to read a full trade or even a full issue in one sitting. Just read 15 minutes, 5 minutes at a time, whenever you feel like you want to. And yeah, set a timer for it. Tip number 8, which is something I've implemented more so when I've been trying to learn something, is reading it out loud. Again, linking back to the auditory sense and getting rid of that with the noise cancellation. Reading it out has really helped me to stay focused at times when I've kind of been looking around the room doing other things. Something I do when I'm reading is I'll read a page and I'll be thinking about what do I want for tea tonight, or what's the next book I want to read, or just singing a song to myself, or thinking about to something 10 years ago and coming up with a good comeback for something. But when you're reading that out loud, you don't really have time to think of those things because you're focusing on speaking the words. Tip number 9, which is something a little bit more for like novels and actual books, it's using a ruler or something to actually read line by line. It can help you to stay focused on where you are. I don't use it personally, but it's something that people can use to help them stay focused for longer, just reading line by line, moving it down and kind of seeing where you're at. My final tip is to use different formats. You don't always have to have physical media. Maybe try using an audiobook, or maybe try reading comics on Kindle or something like that. Personally, I absolutely love the feeling of paper. Like, I love turning the pages, I love reading books that way, and also look at my shelves, I love collecting physical media. If you struggle to focus on things like that, maybe try focusing on a screen or something like a Kindle or DC Unlimited, is it? Marvel Unlimited? Either one of those. Yeah, give that a go. So there are my top 10 tips for trying to read comics with ADHD. I hope this video was able to help some people. I know that I'll be going away and definitely trying to implement some of these practices a little bit more in my own reading, and hopefully be able to read more books in the future. If you guys did enjoy this video, leave me a like down below, consider subscribing if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye guys. Bye.